The city is challenged by losing some tax revenue in the middle of this. Like they probably will lose a ton of tax revenue, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Billions of dollars of property value is going to go untaxed for some time, which has to have a huge impact on county finances. I mean, your property taxes go to the county, so that's where it's going to be felt. However, the county is the provider of last resort for so many safety net elements of our region. I mean, our schools get funded through property taxes. A lot of fire protection gets funded through property taxes. Public safety, relief for people who are suffering from homelessness. So this is going to be a big hit that we're going to have to contend with.
So how did Measure ULA impact the situation in LA?
It's a great question. Measure ULA was put on the ballot in November of 22, and it was billed misleadingly as a mansion tax. And the idea was we've got lots of low-income families that need help. Both they need affordable housing and they need help if they're getting evicted from housing that they're in and things like this, all of which is true, by the way. But the proposal was we'll put a hefty tax on high-value real estate sales, mansions. And nobody really, the billionaires who own these mansions, they can afford it, it doesn't matter. And it's going to provide, $1 billion a year towards affordable housing in Los Angeles. And people thought that was a good idea, and a narrow majority voted to approve Measure ULA. What people didn't realize was, number one, it is not really a mansion tax. Yes, it does tax mansions, but it is also an apartment building tax. It is a commercial building tax.
So it's on everything.
It's a tax on everything above $5 million. And if you ever want to build a studio complex in Los Angeles, or a manufacturing complex, or a warehouse complex, those are going to be above $5 million. And so those would all be subject to this tax. It has disproportionate disincentive effects on investment due to the way real estate deals are structured. It's nominally between a 4.5% and a 5.5% tax on sales, depending on where you are in that value at that value level. But because as a real estate, as a builder, my profit may be 10 or 12% of the total deal, that 5.5% cuts my profit in half, which means that now I need to raise twice as much equity. I can only pay them half as much, and it is a disaster for real estate projects. The effect of this, after it passed, the real estate industry kind of woke up and said, this is not good. And there's been a lot of conversation at the theoretical level about, is it good, is it bad, is it raising money, is it not raising money? Now it's been in effect since April of 2023. That's when that's when the tax started getting charged on properties. And what we've seen, we finally have the data, is transactions in the city of Los Angeles have fallen off by 70% over $5 million.
Wow.
By 70%. And people might say, well, this is just the market generally, and it's not. We've looked at transactions over $5 million outside of the city of Los Angeles, and they're tracking perfectly with everything else in the real estate market. Specifically, transactions above $5 million have fallen off a cliff. Development applications in Los Angeles City have fallen off a cliff. And the reason this matters is, one, if people aren't building new manufacturing facilities, if they're not building movie studios, if they're not building apartment buildings, working people in Los Angeles are not going to have a place to work or a place to live. It's like mission critical right now that we have to reverse that. The other reason why this is a big deal, and people I don't think thought this through, is because the transfer tax has caused real estate sales and development projects over $5 million to come to a screeching halt in LA. They have actually terminated the key mechanisms by which property tax growth happens. And so to get a little bit in the weeds on this, because of Prop 13, property tax growth only happens at the rate of a maximum of 2% a year if you own a property and you don't build on it. if you sell the property, it gets reassessed at current levels, or if you do new construction, they call it, which could be renovations, it could be whatever. If you improve your property, it gets reassessed at current levels.
So transactions help have more taxes, essentially, because there will be new prices, right?
That's right. If somebody just bought a house and they're paying, $12,000 a year in property taxes, and their next door neighbor, the same house basically, but they've owned it for 30 years and they're paying $1,500 a year in property taxes, it really drives home why property sales are important to the county's property tax business, basically. And so by cutting off transactions at that high level, which drive a lot of the valuation in Los Angeles, by cutting those off by 70%, we've really delivered a major blow to property tax revenue growth in the county. And so this should be a major concern for everybody in Los Angeles. It should be